Whiskey people, welcome to another episode of the Whiskey Talking Podcast. My guest was Mike Dominiak, or Mikey D, who has a pretty unique background. He moved to Las Vegas with the goal to work in a Cirque Du Soleil show. He accomplished that really early on, and then went on to help open Bad Beat Brewing right outside of Las Vegas in the booze district in Henderson, Nevada. His love of craft beer, like many others, led him to good whiskey. His collection is pretty awesome, and he shared some really nice pours on this episode. It's really diverse. We taste Nikka 21-year-old, the Bruichladdich Octomore Angel's Envy Cask Strength, Auchentoshen American Oak, and he even surprised me with one there at the end. So I really wanted to have a diverse group of whiskeys for this episode and really talk about everything, and it turned out to be really, really fun. Grab a glass, enjoy, and let's get into it.
The Whiskey Talking Podcast.
All right, whiskey people, welcome to the Whiskey Talking Podcast with Mike Dominiak. Nailed it?
Nailed it.
I was just going to say Mikey D because it would be easier, but welcome, man.
Hey, how's it going? Good evening.
It's amazing. It's going amazing. So I got your intro music, so let's kick this off, and then I'll tell people, is it going? Oh, it's coming. Yeah. All right. So Mikey D is a professional drinker, beer lover, still working at Bad Beat?
Yeah,
Every now and then?
in the back.
In the back, they just have you in the corner and they bring you out?
But we'll say behind the scenes.
Behind the scenes. Definitely instrumental in the upstart of Bad Beat Brewery. Brewing. Jesus Christ. I always mess it up. It's a 50-50 shot. Always.
Yeah, oh man, the things we get from people about the name. It's Bad Beat Brewing Company, Bad Beat Brewery, Bad Beats Brewing.
Everything.
Yeah, no, we're not about music.
Bad Beat Brewing.
Mm-hmm.
See? Perfection. Mike Dominiak.
Yep.
Man,
Everything's
so good.
perfect.
I'm getting so good at this. But you love whiskey, you drink. Well, we'll get into that, but that's a new thing for you too. So welcome, man. So kind of give, the rundown of what your history is, why you're in Vegas, what you do here professionally, and kind of what you've been up to. And because we met, I was helping the Las Vegas distillery, and then you were over at Bad Beat right around the corner in the booze district in Henderson. So just let people know your journey a little bit.
So I was born and raised southwest corner of Detroit, essentially, in Dearborn, Michigan. It's a bordering city, suburb. And I was born and raised there, went to college in Holland, Michigan. So not Holland overseas.
But just tell
Holland,
people.
Michigan.
That's what I would do. I'd be like, I went to college in Holland.
Yeah.
And then just leave it.
And they go, the Netherlands? And I'm like, Michigan. But it's a beautiful town. It's a tiny little...
Very similar.
There's a lot of wooden shoes and a lot of tulips. Too many tulips almost.
All right.
And it's a great little community, small little college town. It's a small liberal arts college, but they were a little more heavy into the Dutch Reformed Church of America.
Wow.
And so it ended up being kind of like a private, like a religious college. And I distanced myself from that.
I hear you. All right.
But most notably for drinkers, New Holland Brewing is located in Holland, Michigan.
Oh, okay.
And so that's that can kind of segue into what got me into craft beer. It started a little bit before that, but I worked at New Holland as a server for about a year and a half.
Oh, okay. So that was your intro to like this other world of beer. What year was that? Because that was pretty early on, right?
It would have been 2006, I want to say, is when I started working there, 2006.
Okay. So pretty early in this whole movement. I mean, it started in certain cities pretty early on.
Yeah.
Like I grew up in Portland, and craft beer was huge there for a long time, but that's still kind of early on the uprising. So what did you dig about beer early on, or you just were around it? And
so I remember vividly the first beer I had at a party at a probably age I shouldn't have been drinking was a Labatt Blue.
Okay.
Like, we're in Michigan, it's just across the river from Canada. Like, people thought Canadian beer was better than, Bud Light and all that stuff. So I had a Labatt Blue, and I didn't
everything
understand.
you dreamed of.
I didn't understand. I was like, people drink this? Okay. All right. I guess I'm going to force this I drank the whole thing.
Yeah.
And then the second beer I ever had was a Guinness.
Okay.
I was like, all right, I tried Canadian beer. Let's go dark and thick and see what happens. And I tried it, and granted, Guinness isn't, it feels thick, but it's light. It's a lighter drinking beer. But had that, and then from Guinness, I was like, let's try something I've never heard of. And I want to say that I had someone buy me a 6-pack of Pete's Wicked Ale. And I had never heard of it before. Okay. And they had never heard of it before. But I was like, I've never heard of it. Let's buy it. Let's see what it tastes like. And that right there was my push off into trying everything I've never heard of before.
Awesome.
And researching and trying craft. And then because New Holland was in town, when I was legal age, I could go there and drink. But I started working there, and from there it was, let's try the IPA, let's try the amber, let's try the their Belgian wit, let's try.
Yeah. Did you always have that really inquisitive exploration side to you, or is that something that kind of spurred from that moment?
It's I've always been open to trying things. Yeah. And so I have this curiosity about me and it kind of speaks when you look at my whiskey collection or my beer collection, because I have a cellar full of beer that I haven't been drinking.
Right.
And it all
pretty diverse. And
it all stems from what sounds interesting, what looks cool. I have things that I bought because the bottle looks neat. I have things that I bought because it's bragging about being the world's peatiest Scotch.
Yeah. Speaking of, we have some really interesting whiskeys in this episode. So, and two of the more interesting ones you brought, which I'm really excited about. But go ahead. So you kind of not fall into the marketing thing, because we are all a little bit into that. But the more it's just interesting to you. To explore. I got.
And so I'm not afraid to. Listening to your cigar episode, I was thinking about Acid Cigars was the first true cigar I smoked. Before that had been White Owl and Swisher Sweets. Oh my God. And then a friend of mine gave me an Acid, and it was a Blue Label. I want to just say they're Blondie, their normal, whatever the Blue Label normal one was.
Right.
And from there I was like, oh man. And then that helped me get into more, I don't want to say regular cigars, but just more regular brands, Rocky Patel, Padron, those. And so,
well, you're picking some good ones right off the, speaking of, I know this is recording, but I'll give you some cigars before you leave too. So,
okay, sure. Yeah. Whiskey, cigars. Yeah, man, this is an awesome day.
Yeah. You brought some whiskeys. It's the least I could do, but So you started there, you got the beer background, you got the thirst, the knowledge, the drive. What led you to Vegas or?
Oh, so I graduated from Hope with a bachelor's in theater.
Okay.
And then I have a minor in studio art. So I'm an artist.
Right.
But my theater degree was mostly backstage stuff. So I did costuming. I did a little bit of lighting. I did
set design.
A little bit of set design, but I mainly focused on props.
Okay.
And it was partially because props was another one of those things that was no one really went into, and so I was drawn to it because it's unique, it's different.
I see.
And that's man, there's a lot of things in my life that drew me for that same reason.
Sure.
I'm going to do this because no one does this.
The road less traveled.
Yeah, exactly.
Cool.
And so graduated. Was doing theater, and I basically had New York City on one hand. A lot of my friends had moved to New York City.
A lot of shows.
There's a little
there's
bit
a few
theater.
there.
Yeah. Just like there's a couple breweries in Portland.
Sure.
And then one faculty member at the college knew a guy who worked at Love. And so he was like, "Oh, you should
One of my favorite
look up
shows.
Oh man,
Me and my wife have seen it like 3 times. Every time someone comes into town, like, what should we see? We're like, we'll go see it again.
Yeah.
But
have you seen the new version? They like revamped it. Like
when did they revamp it?
Like a year ago.
I don't say. Then I don't think so.
So there's new stuff in the show.
Okay.
Another reason to go again.
Absolutely great.
We'll get to why I know all that stuff later. And I lost my train of thought. What was I talking about?
What led you to Vegas? So job opportunities.
So he mentioned Cirque Du Soleil to me,
Yeah.
and I was like, oh, that kind of sounds interesting. And so I looked into Vegas, and I went, oh man, the rent prices are cheaper, the weather's way better. Like, oh, this might be cool. And I knew no one here, and so I talked with my parents and was like, I think I'm going to move to Vegas, and they just didn't understand. They were like, okay, what? Vegas?
Who moves to Vegas?
Yeah.
Yeah.
You're going to live in a hotel? And
Yep. The common Vegas misconceptions, but yeah.
And so I came out here with my mom and just to look at apartments because I'm an only child, and so she had to come and look to make sure that the city was safe for me to move to.
Yeah, I mean, you're 35 years old when you came out. No, I'm just kidding.
I was I was 20. I just turned 22.
All right, still old enough to like
23.
Mom, come along.
23, 22, somewhere in there. And so she just wanted to come out and help more so than anything else. And so we came out. I found myself an apartment. The first place I lived was right by the airport. I was on Paradise, south of Sunset.
Yeah, I was on Maryland Parkway in Flamingo.
Oh, yeah.
By UNLV, and I'm glad my mom never came out and saw that first place I lived. The whole story of me coming out here, not to sidetrack, but my very first apartment here, studio, I shared it with a friend that moved out with me, and there was no front door. It was just a sliding glass door.
Oh my
with
gosh.
like this lock on it. Apartments are still there, but yeah, go ahead. So we had
and that
great apartments.
That apartment complex was actually pretty good, and I felt the best about it because it's basically an apartment with a bunch of industrial complexes and then a like subdivision.
Okay,
right
so
there
wasn't too many people right around it. Do you
No.
remember what the rent was a month?
with
Just curious.
with the cats. It was a 1-bedroom apartment. I want to say without the cat rent because it was like per cat. It was extra rent, and I wanted I didn't know anyone, so I moved out with 2 cats.
Yeah, absolutely, why not?
It was like $785 a month for a 1-bedroom.
Ooh.
But it was big. It was like a 700 square foot 1-bedroom apartment.
Wow, so never mind. You had it way better than me. Mine was $420 a month, and we paid in cash.
Oh man,
Not good. Anyway, back to you. So you had a decent. You got the cats. You got mom to move you out. So
Dad moved me out.
okay,
So, yeah, it was a great.
But she helped you scope.
Yes, yeah, she helped me scope, and then it was an awesome drive out here with my dad. I had my truck with a trailer. Just
Nice.
moved all my stuff out. We stopped at breweries the whole way out here.
It's awesome.
And he stayed like a week, and I think it was in that week, and it was end of September, so it was already getting down into the 60s and fall and cold in Michigan, and it was still hot here. And my dad was like, "Oh, Vegas is pretty cool."
I get it. Yeah, it's hard to leave this once you're here and then go. Like I'll go back to Oregon. I still love it, but if I go back and visit while it's doing that, like. See, here when it rains and then it's gone. The city floods because Vegas isn't built for it, and then it's kind of gone. Oregon, it's it's like a faucet that someone left on really low, and it just nonstop like drizzles, and I'm like, oh man.
Yeah,
So,
I don't mind it. When I was visiting there, it drizzled the entire time I was there. Surprise, surprise. We had one sunny day out of like 3 or 4 days that we were there, and I didn't mind it so much. It's better than like Michigan rain, which is the downpours we get here, but for days on end.
Yeah, that's bad too. But so now you're in Vegas. So you,
I got here, was job searching. I started off. I became a stagehand at the MGM Grand Garden Arena, and my first gig was loading in Van Halen's reunion tour.
with Gary Sharon?
No, with
David Lee Roth.
With David Lee Roth.
Okay, because I saw him with Gary Sharon.
Oh, right.
Which was like, I guess that was a long time ago. Wow.
So that was 2000, like December of 2007.
Okay.
And so like here I am, kid from Michigan, moving out here, working at I put together my first big concert tour in a giant arena. And my jaw was on the floor the whole time I was walking around putting stuff together, and I didn't know what I was doing.
Sure.
But then as I was fixing a railing on the stairs leading to the stage, like someone had installed it wrong, as I was sitting there fixing it, I smelled cigarettes or like something. Like I smelled this smell.
Yeah.
And then all of a sudden I felt a hand on my shoulder, and this like voice was just like, "Excuse me, brother." And I like scooted over, and then
please let it be David Lee Roth.
No, it was Eddie Van Halen. His guitar went right by my head.
Frankenstein, right?
And he walked right on stage and did his sound check. And I'm like there with my crescent wrench on the railing, like not moving, just staring at him, listening to him play. And I was like, this is...
I would have lost it. At least it wasn't David Lee Roth, because he'd tap you. He's like, boobity bump. You're like, yeah, we get it. No one wants to hear that anymore. You're 75 years old. No,
he didn't want to do a sound check.
No.
So
yeah,
he wasn't there.
Oh man, see Eddie. That's still like, yeah, it's pretty awesome.
Mm-hmm.
So that was your first?
So that was my first gig. And then it was basically 10 months of me loading in different shows and conferences and this and that, getting into like, okay, this is arena life. And then I started picking up shifts at Crazy Horse Paris, the show that was in smaller theater inside MGM, because they needed someone to cover when they were taking vacation. They needed like an on-call just to cover shifts. And so I learned that. Loaded out a couple shows from the Hollywood Theater, like David Copperfield's show or whoever's in that other showroom that MGM has. And then since I had moved out here, like my main goal was, okay, I graduated from college. I'm going to work for Cirque du Soleil. They sound really cool, and they're big, and they do all these crazy shows.
Yeah.
So I'm like, we'll see how long it takes me to get there. 10 months after moving here, I got called by Cirque du Soleil to apply for a job on Criss Angel Believe.
Wow.
So I had applied for a bunch of different jobs with at Love or at Ka, and I think one at Zumanity, and had been turned down for all of them. And so I was in their system. I was on their radar.
Good thing you didn't get Zumanity and had to like make props. Mm-hmm. That would have been cool, but that show, for people that haven't seen it, like, don't go there with your mom.
Yeah, it's 18 plus for a reason. And there's dildo fights and a bunch of other... Can I say dildo fights?
Well, you just did.
Yeah, okay.
So,
well,
absolutely, you can. That's the name of this episode.
Yes.
All right.
And so I applied over there, or they asked me to apply. I applied, I interviewed, I got hired, and it was, that started my nearly 10-year run there now. I'm still in the theater. The show's changed a bunch. And
Criss Angel Mind Freak Live, or
Mind
whatever.
Freak Live.
Is that what it's called? Cool.
So it used to be Believe, and that was more of a Cirque du Soleil and Criss Angel show. And then...
Yeah, that's right.
It's still, Cirque du Soleil is still involved, but they kind of said, we need a refresh. Chris wanted to do something different, so they let him do whatever he wanted to do, and it became like more of a specifically Criss Angel show.
I gotcha. Very cool.
And I've done everything from illusions department to automation, like daytime maintenance automation, and actually during the show running automation. And then just recently I was made the daytime lead carpenter, so I basically run the building during the daytime maintenance.
Oh, very cool. Mm-hmm. Nice. So what got you into like beer out here? Because first of all, explain. We'll get into whiskey here in a little bit, but
beer talking podcast.
Yeah. Now it is. But explain like the craft beer scene in Las Vegas when you first started getting into it, and kind of where it's at now, and your involvement with Bad Beat.
Okay. When I moved here, I want to say, 2007, there wasn't much. We had Big Dogs, Barley's Casino, Ellis Island, and I'm forgetting a lot. Tenaya Creek was open.
Yeah.
And
no Joseph James then?
Joseph James, I think, started in 2008.
Okay.
And so right when I was, like, when I moved here, my dad and I went out and went to every brewery in town, and it took us like 2 days. Yeah. We were kind of, I don't know, just like compared to Michigan, especially like even even after I left, Michigan exploded with craft beer. But the craft beer that was there, I mean, Bell's, Founders. New Holland was kind of still, like when I was working at New Holland, they were still a 6,000, 7,000 barrel a year brewery, and now they're like way more than that. I can't even tell you what number they're at now. But so like I had more of a palate for craft beer, and moved out here and was like, man, I don't want to say everything sucked, but everything was just more.
You can say it. Amateurish?
Yeah. Well, no, it was just more crowd pleasing. That's the word I'm looking for. So it was like everything was easy drinking. It was fine, but
nothing really innovative, pushing, like really going for like kind of making their own niche.
Yes. Yeah. Exactly. And so once Joseph James came around, they were starting to push some things, especially with them just being a production brewery and not having a tap room, not having a restaurant or brew pub to go to.
Right.
And so I kind of faded from the beer scene for a little bit, and I was just like, oh yeah, I'll grab some craft from the liquor store and have it at home. And when I go out, when Yard House came into town, that was like, oh man, look at all these beers that are here
on tap. Yeah.
And so
that was actually big for Las Vegas though. Because it really got a, I mean, that was the first one that I can remember that was like, holy, how many beers have they got on tap? So,
and it took me a while to actually find the craft beer scene people in Vegas.
Yeah.
And it wasn't until I took a tour of Joseph James where during the tour, someone asked, like, where should we buy your beer at? And he was like, well, you can find it at these places, but if you really want to support the local scene, we recommend, local liquor stores, specifically Corey's.
Yeah.
And I'm like, I've never heard of this place. Let's go. And then they said, you can have a beer there. And I'm like, it's a liquor store and you can have a beer at it?
Yeah.
Like, okay, this is a great idea. And I remember going to Corey's for the first time when they had like 3 beers on tap, and their liquor section was where their current seating section was. That's how long ago it was that I went there for the first time. Right. And then the second time I went in was when he changed stuff around and started moving things and making it a little bit more hangout friendly. And even now, have you been in since he started installing the couch in the corner?
Well, I saw that the bench that they got put in, which is really awesome. Yeah. And then I saw today, and now they're doing cheese plates like today, and I'm like, wow, look at you. No, I love Corey's. It's just it's not too far from me, but
everything's far from any place on Blue Diamond.
That's true.
I left my house at like 5 o'clock, and I got here at 6.
I know. I always it's
traffic, yes.
It's a struggle. I mean, but compared to other cities, like we don't have it too bad.
Yeah, no, not you can get everywhere in 40 minutes to an hour
max,
corner to corner.
Right. So you went to Corey's, and that was like, so now you're finding people, like-minded people, where you're like, oh, there's people that are interested. There just weren't that many breweries yet really making their mark. So, no, go ahead.
And so, like, meeting those people, then it was, have you gone to Aces and Ales? Have you gone to this place? Have you tried? And I'm like, no, I didn't even know. And so that helped me get into the beer scene and meet people. And, like you said, the like-minded people. And it, excuse me, it got me going, I guess.
Yeah.
But there was always that feeling of like, man, Vegas needs something else. And so when I had always, let me sidetrack again. So my moving out to Vegas, in my mind, my like career goal was work for Cirque Du Soleil.
Right.
Like I thought it was kind of the end all be all. I'm going to work up to that. And then I got it right away. So I was like, oh,
now
okay.
What? Yeah.
Now what?
Yeah.
Then my like side dream, my like personal dream was I really want to open a brewery.
Yeah.
And so then when I met Nathan, who's the owner and of Bad Beat Brewing, I tried his homebrew first before meeting him. And it was at it's a sandwich shop on Eastern, right by the BJ's Brew House. It was like a Hawaiian themed. It was what is it called? I was just talking about the other day. It closed. It just recently closed. But I went in there and there was this tiny little sandwich shop and they had like 4 or 5 beer taps and always had craft beer on. So I'd go in there, grab a sandwich, grab a beer. And the manager was like, hey, this guy dropped off this homebrew. You want to try some? I'm like, oh, homebrew. Yeah. Okay. Yeah, sure. I'll try it.
Yeah.
And I drank it and it was gut shot. It was our, like what we brew now is gut shot and, or the original recipe for gut shot. And I was like, wow, this is good. It's a dry Irish stout, like 4.1%, just like Guinness.
Yeah.
And it drank great. It didn't taste like homebrew. It was carbonated well. And so I was like, I hope I meet this guy sometime. And then the next time we were in the sandwich shop, he was in there with a 6-pack of his pumpkin beer,
right?
Which we will never make a pumpkin beer. And we
Back
tried
when
it.
It wasn't everywhere.
Oh my God.
But yeah.
And coming in July is when the pumpkin beers start showing up.
Yeah.
And so I met with him, talked with him, and my wife and I actually like commented on the beer and was like, I could use a little more cinnamon, and I think the fact that we actually critiqued the beer, he appreciated that. And then it became, from that moment, it was, hey, have you heard about Corey's? Have you heard about bottle shares on Wednesdays when everyone brings, beers in from out of market stuff and they share them? And we started hanging out, I started homebrewing with him. And then he was like, yeah, I want to open a brewery. I'm like, I can't invest in that, but I'll put in as much sweat equity as you want. Like I will help you if you open a brewery. And then all of a sudden he signed a lease on a place and the ball was rolling. And
real quick, just like his story of how the name came about and like his background's kind of cool. So
Nathan moved out to Vegas to play poker. And so Bad Beat is a poker term for when it's specifically when the worst hand you can be dealt in Texas Hold'em beats a better hand. Or
it's basically if the odds are in your favor to win, and then you end up getting a run of cards where the other person wins.
Yeah.
So if you're like a 90% favorite and someone has a 10% chance and they get this miracle like runner, that's a bad beat.
Yeah. Yeah. So he liked that name for the brewery because we were the underdogs. We're the new guys in town.
Yeah.
We want to be a brewery that like really pushes quality and wants good beers and not just, we just wanted good quality beers, simple beers. And we've ventured out into some crazy, different ingredients here and there, but it's not our core thing.
But as a whole, you wanted to elevate the city to be known for something more than just these. And they weren't bad. Like you mentioned some amazing breweries, and they've probably had to progress more recently because so many, it's iron sharpens iron, right?
Yeah.
So it's like someone does something really amazing and those other breweries that have been around are like, oh shit, we got to like make sure we're on point too. So it's like strengthening the community as a whole by pushing the limits a bit.
Yeah. And it brought, there was four breweries, 5 maybe, that opened within the span of like a year and a half in Vegas. It was Banger.
Yep.
Then us, Craft House,
Hop Nuts,
and the one that closed.
It's not Vegas Brewing Company.
Old School Brewing.
Yeah, the one on like Durango.
Yeah. So they're unfortunately closed now, but within like a year and a half there, like 5 breweries popped up. And then since then we've had Love Lady Brewing pop up, which Richard is awesome. Coming from Gordon Biersch and all his experience and, building a brewery from the ground up, their tap room's amazing.
Yeah.
And was there another one? Am I forgetting someone that opened since?
They'll let you know if they listen to this.
Yeah, sorry guys. No. It's the lights in my face and I'm feeling stressed out here.
Yeah, I have a spotlight. So you're working Bad Beat. We'll kind of get more into like your beer palate relating to whiskey. What got you into whiskey? Like when did this start?
So when I was in college, same sort of thing. Like it was one of those things where like the first whiskey I drank was either a sip of like Jack Daniels out of my parents' like liquor cabinet, but like the most memorable one was I had to go into a college party. I wanted to look cool. It was my first like frat party. And so I asked someone to grab me a pint of whiskey and a liter of Coke.
Yeah.
And so I was basically just like swigging from the bottle and chasing from the Coke bottle.
Yeah,
and
nothing wrong with that.
They bought me Seagram 7.
Okay.
And so I was like, okay, all right, Canadian whiskey. Like, I would have rather had Jim or Jack or something, but I'm like, okay, I'm going to take this to the party. And I had like one in my back pocket, and then I'd take it out, take a swig, force it down, and then drink a bunch of Coke. And then I was like, oh, okay, whiskey.
This is whiskey.
And then I had the same faculty member who introduced me to cigars and the acid line and got me into better cigars than White Owl and Swisher Sweets was kind of steered me towards like, why don't you try the Knob Creek? Why don't you try Woodford Reserve? And so I started tasting those, and I was like, okay, this like whiskey's good.
Yeah. And
then I also had a he was my sculpture professor, and I kind of viewed him as my mentor. And he passed away recently, but he was the one who got me into like fine cigars and fine liquor. And so he would always recommend things to me, and I honestly can't remember what they were or what we had, but I just remember like whenever he brought a cigar and some sort of whiskey out, like they went perfect together. And
so it's kind of instrumental in seeing like the art in everything, whether it be.
He taught me more about life than he did about art, but he was teaching me art, but I ended up learning more about life is basically what happened.
It happens, man. And like we've said on the show before, the more you learn just in the reference of whiskey, the more you learn about the history, you learn about why it was made and the people that made it. And then if you have the opportunity to visit these distilleries, you end up learning people's stories behind these liquids. It's not just liquid anymore. It's stories in a glass, right? Yeah. And that kind of will translate, so that's pretty interesting to have somebody kind of show you products that are made with such passion and a higher quality, and kind of end up respecting them more. So that was kind of your step up in whiskey.
Yeah. And then, like once I moved out to Vegas, I think I had a Costco membership, and I remember something. This is really funny. I bought a 1.75 or 1.5 liter of Johnny Walker Red.
Yeah.
And it was on sale at Costco for like a stupid cheap price.
Sure.
And I still have that bottle, and it's still not finised. And it is
awesome.
It has been put out at every single party, and it's like I'll mix it every once in a while. But but like I had some whiskey sitting around the house, and it wasn't until it was like I didn't go back into those finer things. And then every once in a while I'd go out for barbecue, and then I'd get like a Memphis barbecue on Warm Springs. Yeah. They had like a bourbon flight. And so I'd try those bourbons, and it's Makers and Basil Hayden's and I want to say Baker's maybe, and then something else. And so trying all those, but I wasn't really paying attention. I just wanted to drink them and see what they felt like more than analyzing them. But then I don't know when it came about that I was like, I need to buy all the whiskey.
Yeah.
And now I have a ridiculous liquor cabinet.
What is your collection sitting at?
I think I just surpassed 90 bottles of whiskey itself. And I know that's not much compared to.
Yeah, that's a lot. Like I've downsized because we were originally gonna move, so I've gotten rid of some and just kind of held on to the ones that are like really, like I really want to keep in the collection. But no, that's a lot, man.
Mm-hmm. And that's, like I said, that's just whiskey. Then I have another cabinet next to that one with gins and vodkas and
all the rest
cognac and rum, bunch of rum.
Nice.
Some Jeppson's Malort.
Yeah, it's funny because I had the whiskey sitting out that we were going to pour. And for those of you that don't know what Malort is, the best I can describe it is popular in Chicago. It's kind of the thing to drink in Chicago.
It's like a bartender's handshake, I've heard it referred to. But.
Sure. It's like the Fernet in San Francisco. And people say that they like it. The best way I can describe Malort is like roses mixed with gasoline. I think the people that say that they love it, you say you do. You say you like it. I'm skeptical of anyone that says it. But
I let my friend try it, and I think he described it as like an old grapefruit burnt asshole is what it tastes like.
You know what? Better than my description. You want to get into the first whiskey?
Sure. Yeah.
Awesome. So we got 4 today. So the first one we were going pretty light. What I poured here was the Auchentoshen, or if you need to pronounce it exactly like the Scottish, Auchentoshen, American oak. So Beam Suntory, it's a Lowlands single malt, non-age statement, 40% ABV, about $40. Coloring is added, and I believe it's chill filtered. Introduced in 2014, and it replaced the Auchentoshan Classic, which didn't have great reviews, so I think they stepped up production a little bit. So a little bit more on this one. It's matured exclusively in first fill bourbon casks, triple distilled for that softer style, so that's pretty reminiscent of the Lowlands. It's unusual for Scotch to have that triple distillation just because it's going to be so delicate. It's definitely its own style for a specific niche. Distillery is built in 1800. The distillery is also known as Glasgow's malt whiskey due to its close proximity to Glasgow. And it's the breakfast whiskey due to its sweet and delicate nature, I believe. So we'll get into this whiskey a little bit, get some tasting notes. It'll be interesting too. You want to explain real quick why this glass of whiskey here is kind of special?
Oh yeah.
In a nutshell.
So long story short, very recently I had a doctor tell me I needed to stop drinking for a while. So I have been 6 months sober.
Yeah.
And this is going to be my first real sit down and have a couple drinks in 6 months. And so I have no idea what my palate's going to do. I have no idea.
I'm responsible for getting you off the wagon.
Yeah,
Is it off the wagon or? Yeah.
Okay. Wait.
On it is, yeah. Anyway, I'm getting you drinking again.
Yeah, I'm drinking again. And so...
You're welcome.
Yeah.
No.
Thanks, Cody.
Yeah.
Do we cheers or do you just put that sound effect in?
No, absolutely. Cheers.
Oh. Cheers.
Yeah. You hear that? Yeah, so it's definitely what it's described as. I really like Auchentoshan for what it is. So on the nose, like a ton of orange, like bitter orange for me. There's so much citrus in this. What are you kind of getting? Because it's interesting, like from a craft beer palate that you'll notice things in beer, but it does translate because whiskey is distilled beer. So we're going to get some of the same elements without a lot of the hoppiness.
Yeah.
But
this is delicious.
Yeah.
This is a great first thing to come back to. I can tell that it's a little bit lighter, that it's a little bit smoother, easier going down. In terms of tasting notes, hold on. It's been a while. I'm having trouble finding words about it. I taste I taste a sweetness.
Yeah, it's definitely sweet. What I get a lot, I mean, to say toffee is one thing, but what I had written down for this when I first tasted it was a lot of times I'll get bitter chocolate or dark chocolate and things, but in this I get more of a creamy like milk chocolate.
Okay.
Which is unique for me to get on whiskeys usually. Usually it has like a bitter element or like a cocoa, kind of bitterness to it. But this is like a sweeter like milk chocolate.
Yeah. Okay.
So,
I agree. I
yeah,
concur. I'm just going to say whatever you say.
No, but sometimes with something delicate like this, it's hard to really get into it and pick out the flavors. For me, it's just a ton of citrus, super easy drinking. It's not, the mouth feels a little thinner. I mean, it's that style, it's not this big, rich, oily, full mouthfeel, but it's really not supposed to be. The finish on it isn't super complex, but it's not supposed to be. This is a specific style. Easy drinking, like really nice, really well-made Scotch. So
I see why you said it's the breakfast Scotch. Yeah, I can see why. And I don't want to say this, but it reminds me, like talking about the milk chocolate and the citrus notes, it reminds me of those chocolate oranges that you smack on the table.
That's such a, like that comes up in a lot of my tasting notes because I didn't like them growing up. My mom would like buy them. Mm-hmm. I liked hitting them. Yeah. It was fun to like break it apart. But I was just never into citrus with my chocolate. But yeah, that's a really, really spot on for here. Mm-hmm. But yeah, this is good. Auchentoshen, American Oak, they have a bunch of really, really fun stuff. It's a great Scotch I've found in when people say they don't like Scotch. You know, there's a few of them that are my go-tos. Auchentoshen's there because it's going to be that lighter style, so it's not so aggressive in your face. It's like the training wheels of Scotch, and I mean that with the most respect. But there's other ones like Belvini Caribbean Cask 14-year. Because it's sweeter, so it's easier to introduce people to that.
Yeah,
seasoned drinkers love that too, but it's like you need something to kind of bridge the gap. And then, you know, it's like with beer. You taste, you're not going to like a crazy IPA when you first start drinking beer. You're going to be like, what the fuck? Like, what are you doing? So it's kind of, you need to kind of ease people into it a little bit sometimes. But
I think being from the Midwest, like being from Michigan, in terms of IPAs, I definitely saw that because IPA, like Two Hearted, Bell's Two Hearted was an IPA that I was drinking after New Holland's Mad Hatter.
Okay.
And moving out to Vegas and drinking IPAs from the West Coast, like that was my first time of, where's the malt? Where's the malt in this IPA? It's all hops.
So there's no balance. Man. Yeah. People forgot about balance for a while.
And I don't necessarily, I didn't hate it immediately. Yeah. I was just surprised to be like, oh, there is only hop flavor in these beers. And then I enjoyed it. And so definitely like those Midwest IPAs are a little bit more introductory and easier to get into because you get that malty flavor balance. They're still hoppy, but
but it's not completely ripping your face off.
Yes,
type of thing.
Yeah.
What's the best Boilermaker in your opinion? Or what's one that what you'd like?
Oh man, I started off. So my senior year of college, we did something called Irish History, and it was every Thursday night at the Irish pub in town. It was like $1 off everything Irish.
It sounds educational.
Oh man, we learned so much
and forgot more.
Yeah. But it was like $1 off everything Irish. Shots of Irish whiskey were all $1 off. The Guinness, Harp, and Smittix were all $1 off.
Okay.
And you could get $3 Irish car bombs.
Ooh.
Yeah, and so
that was a recipe for a long night and a horrible morning.
Yeah, then it just went down so easy because they only did like a tiny splash of whiskey in the shot, so that's why they were so cheap. It was basically Bailey's and Guinness, and so
more just give me the sugar.
After a while, I got sick of. Well, I never got sick of the Irish car bombs, but I enjoyed drinking a Guinness with a shot of Powers next to it.
Okay,
and so that was my my combo for a long time. Was what like anytime I went into an Irish restaurant.
I like that though. That's a good, easy drinking Boilermaker.
Mm-hmm.
I dig it. Awesome, man. Let's just because we're on the whiskey roll, let's get into the next one. This one's a really fun one too. So got a lot to say about this one just because it's pretty special. It's the Nikka Taketsuru Pure Malt 21-year. So it's the and you brought this one. Thank you so much.
You're welcome.
It's the Japanese blended malt, 43% ABV. It was crowned the world's best malt whiskey at the 2010 World Whiskey Awards. Just a little background on what blended malt or the pure malt means. The pure malt, also known as vatted malt or blended malt, is whiskey distilled at 2 different malt whiskey distilleries. Let's see. I'm trying to remember the name of these two. Yoichi is one, I believe, and then I would mess it up. It's Miyagaiko. Yeah, there's the two main for Nikka. I just butchered that, but I should have wrote those down. Unlike Scotland, Japanese don't trade whiskeys with other companies. They produce their own whiskeys and blend to their specifications with varying elements of the whiskey production from different peat levels, different yeasts, variation on fermentation, distillation type of casks, length that they age it, all these different variables, and then they blend to their specifications. So it's pretty cool, pretty awesome. This is a pretty fun one. I didn't write down the price of this one. I know you got it as a gift. I always try to say retail, but it's Japanese and it's 21 years old, so you take a guess.
Yeah,
it's expensive. Cheers again.
Cheers again.
Anything this old, I'm cheersing. No, I'm just kidding. All right, so on the nose, man, it has this really sweet oaky. So the first thing I get is like almost raisiny, like prune. I remember growing up, my mom loved like prunes, and we had it in like Kuchen, which is like a German like cake thing.
Yeah.
And that's kind of what it reminds me of, like a creamy like prune. So on the nose, let's see. See, for this, it's absolutely delicious, by the way. This is where the cocoa comes in for me. Much more complex. I mean, to compare these two, I'm not really comparing them. I'm only comparing them because we just had one. Yeah, the mouthfeel, there's this, not tannins, but definitely more presence of oak. A lot more acidity. Yeah, like coffee. I don't know. This is absolutely delicious. You're not going to go wrong here.
No.
How's the palate holding up? Getting back into it.
Man, I don't know how to interpret what I'm tasting.
It's just like your senses, like your olfactory. He's like, what is this? All of a sudden.
It's like I feel like I'm back at square one. Like I took a tiny little sip of one of our more recent beers that was coming out, and it wasn't even finished. Like I think it hadn't even been dry hopped all the way yet or something. It wasn't even finished. I just wanted to taste it, and took a tiny little taste, and I was like, I don't even recognize any of the flavors I'm getting. It's like my palate has just reset, and I kind of feel like I have to relearn everything.
Yeah, I mean, we were kind of talking about this beforehand. You didn't know quite how you'd rebuild.
Yeah.
And we're talking about, we did a Tasting 101 episode with Jake Davenport, and it is, you kind of have to stay up on it or you lose things. But I also, that said, I think you can get them back because it's kind of like, you know, riding a bike a little bit, but you know, they'll start to come back to you, and then you build those palate, you know, that database back up. But it is absolutely delicious, man.
I've also never, like, as much as I've been into beer and as much as I've gotten into whiskey, I started just enjoying it. And I felt like, especially with apps like Untapped and rating apps for beer, I got into that mode of, I need to analyze everything, and I stopped enjoying drinking beer. And so once Bad Beat opened, I deleted the app. I haven't been back. I think I checked like one beer in just to brag about something, but like I've never gone back, and I just try and enjoy the beers without analyzing it. So if I'm with someone and they want to talk about that stuff, I would get into it, but like it's really the furthest thing from my mind. Yeah. And so I guess like even in addition to that, and not drinking for the past 6 months has gotten me out of practice of identifying those notes on the nose and the flavors, and my palate's just who knows what right now. Yeah.
No, that, I mean, really not everyone's going to sit down and break it down like, you know, I do on a lot of shows. But that's also why I have, you know, this diversity of questions too, because it really is, it comes down to, listen, is this good? Is this whiskey good? Do you enjoy it? Why do you enjoy it? What do you pair it with? But I always like to give people at least the perception, kind of the tasting notes that I'm getting. But this is, I knew this was going to be good, but it's like, it's still, I don't know. I don't even want to go on to the next one. No, I'm just kidding. Well, the next one's very different too, but
There's a lot left in the bottle. Mm-hmm. I might have to Uber home. Oh man, that'll be a long Uber. $60 maybe.
Oh no, we can get you home. So totally on topic. Would you rather eat oatmeal with Arsenio Hall or commit arson with Hall and Oates?
I'd have to say commit arson with Hall and Oates.
Yeah,
just
definitely.
I mean, I'm sure that they'd probably write a song about it afterwards, and I'd probably play a pretty decent part in that song. And
absolutely,
I'd enjoy the shit out of that.
Yeah. I agree 100%. You nailed that one. Would you rather sit on a freezing cold public toilet seat or a warm one that you knew was from a stranger's butt?
Oh man.
Listen, it's only hard-hitting questions on the show.
I'll take one for the team. I'll sit on the cold one so that it's warm for someone else.
Look at you. It's true hospitality. True hospitality. I dig it. Let's see. What are some of your favorite spots to get, whether it be beer, whiskey, food in town? Because I know a lot of people, I mean, I've said this on other shows, but a lot of people message me and they're like, hey, I'm coming to Vegas and so, hey, where should I go? You know, so, I mean, where do you like to go? Could be anything, food, whiskey. I know Corey's was mentioned, but.
Yeah, Corey's is specifically like if there's any beer drinkers out there listening, Wednesday night's the night to go. It's usually when they do special beer tappings or people are bringing in out of market beers to open and share. So that's a good night for beer drinkers. Friday nights there seem to be kind of stepping up as like another night just to hang out. I believe today there was I hope I don't butcher the name, the Sia Scotch. It was like a crowdfunded blended Scotch.
Yeah, I don't know too much about it yet, but yeah.
It's a pretty cool story. I guess the woman who made it was a bartender and all of a sudden gotten into blending and wanted to make a Scotch, and so she crowdfunded it and bought a bunch of barrels up and made a Scotch, and it scored 96 points in something. I don't know.
Changing the game.
Yeah. And so there was a tasting for that there tonight, and then just recently they had the Whistling Andy people in doing a tasting of their stuff.
When Lisa and Brian were in town, they went there. They had Two Bitches bourbon there, which is a source bourbon. I think out of Elko, Nevada. I can't remember.
Yeah.
I haven't had it. I wanted some information on the sourcing, and I haven't really been in contact with them. I kind of just searched for it, and I haven't found too much. But yeah, I was going to go to that tasting, but I didn't. But yeah, they do some fun stuff. But
so there's always something going on. In terms of other places, I mean, come on down to Bad Beat if you want a beer.
So that's for people listening. It's the Booze District is in Henderson. It's off
So it's Eastgate is the road that we're on.
Right.
And we're between Auto Show Drive and Warm Springs on Eastgate.
Okay. So like from the strip, it's going to be like if you drove, it'll be like what, 15, 20 minutes?
Yeah, that's about what it takes me to get home, and I live right by the brewery. So it's not just us, and there's Craft House is there also, which is another brewery, and then Astronomy Ale Works is opening up sometime soon. They're going to be couple doors down from Craft House in the same building.
Okay.
And then there's the Las Vegas Distillery, which is in the building directly north of us.
Yep.
And then Grape Expectations just opened up their Vegas Valley Winery. They have a place to go drink wine, so you can hit all three, beer, wine, and liquor in one place.
Absolutely. So yeah, I'm really excited for the Grape Expectations guys opening Vegas Valley Winery. You always see KJ on there with the Vegas the Vegas Knights, the Golden Knights. What do you think of the support that the city showed for arguably they're winning, so we'll see if they ever stop winning like they are.
Yes.
Like here's my take on it before you get into it, because I know you're a fan and you've been to the games, and I would love to go because like I loved going to hockey games back home in Oregon. But just all of a sudden there's so many fans, which is cool to get behind a city, but it's like it's just one of those things where it's like there's stickers everywhere. I think it's more of like the timing of when they started winning coincided with the shooting that happened in Las Vegas. So it was definitely like, oh, we are a community. So I think that aspect of it's been phenomenal. What's your take on it?
So speaking about the shooting, it was such an well, hold on, let me step it back. When it was first announced that an NHL expansion team could be coming to Vegas, not moving the Arizona Coyotes up here, which everyone thought was going to happen.
Yeah.
Actually, an actual expansion team coming to Vegas. The output of support when they knew nothing about what the franchise was going to be was amazing. I want to say it was something like whenever ticket sales opened, they needed to sell at least 10,000 season tickets or have people put deposits down on 10,000 season tickets by September. And I want to say they went on sale in like April or February or March.
Yeah.
And by April or May of that year, they had already hit 10,000. And then before they even opened sales up to everyone else, like casinos and corporations and whatnot, they had reached 14,000 or something.
Right.
Season ticket deposits. Granted, yes, some people were excited and probably put deposits down, and some of that they canceled later on.
Right.
But still, just like in a town where everyone was like, hockey won't survive in the desert. Ice melts in the desert. I'm like, that's not a real reason why it's not going to survive here.
But we got so much criticism, like a professional team wouldn't make it in here because we have no loyalty, and there's a bunch of other obstacles. But that really showed like the people here wanted a professional team, like to really get behind.
Because everyone who lives here is from somewhere else.
So they want to see their team.
I grew up a Red Wings fan, and I grew up during the golden era of all the Stanley Cup wins and the Russian Five or whatever. I can't even remember what they're called now, but like that was what I grew up with. And so when they got announced, I'm like, oh, hockey is my favorite sport to watch live. It's better than football, basketball, baseball live for me.
Yeah.
And it's really the only sport I enjoy watching on TV. But I was so excited about it. And I'm like, okay, so 80 games out of the year, I'm a Golden Knights fan. The other 2 games, I'm rooting for the Red Wings.
Right.
Then when it came time and we played the Red Wings, I was like, kill them. Like, I don't care. Like beat the Red Wings.
What's our record now? I mean,
we're 34-14-4.
But where are you ranking?
I don't follow it too. Second in the NHL,
which is
as a whole.
It's the most successful expansion team in any sport, right? First year.
We've been breaking records left and right.
It's been crazy.
The most recent record that we broke was most wins in an inaugural season, which was actually a tied record between the Panthers and the Ducks.
Okay.
From like 93 or somewhere in the 90s.
Okay.
Both teams won 33 games in the entire season. We had 33 wins, like just past the halfway point of the season.
So the records are gonna keep coming.
Yeah. And it's just there's all these haters out there who are like, oh, they cherry picked all these pros from all these other teams, and we're like, we did a draft.
Yeah.
Yes, we had some easier draft rules, but still we were at, besides Fleury and Neal and some of the other experienced players, we were picking, after all the protected players on each team, we were picking each team's 10th or 12th best player.
Right.
And so maybe if you put a team of 10th and 12th best players together, they might end up working. But I shout out to George McPhee and Bill Foley and like the whole Knights management team, because when they put that team together, they had lines worked out in their head of who was going to play with who, and it's pretty much stayed the same.
Yeah, they did something right, man. Just beyond the sport though, like as much as it doesn't bother me that all of a sudden everyone's a hockey fan, or a hockey fan, just because of what it represents to me. I'm not so much into it, but I am behind what it represents, and that's everyone thinks Las Vegas has no community, no support whatsoever, and we saw that change with the hockey and the day after the shooting, and everyone. I was in South Korea at the time, so it was weird for me because I was a little bit detached, but still like a yearning to kind of get home and like be with my wife was here and see my friends, and so it just kind of showed the world like, and I think it's the same thing with the support for the hockey team is that there is a community here that cares, and it has a yearning for like this communal aspect, and it's not just transient, come into Vegas, make your money, leave, go home, back to California or whatever. So I think what it represents is cool. People that are I think it's really fun that kids are like getting or parents are putting their kids into like skating lessons and taking them to the ice rink. It's like, that's pretty, it's just so bizarre because 5 years ago you'd be like, what, a hockey team? Yeah.
The reaction, like, it's a twofold thing with the shooting. The 1 October, like what happened, and then us starting our season like right after that in Dallas. Yeah. First off, Dallas like did a thing at their game. Like, it was a moment of silence at their game for the tragedy. And I think the rest of the NHL being like, oh man, here's this new team. They're just getting ready to start off, and then their hometown is hit with this craziness. Yeah. And so the NHL has been supportive, it seems like, just in what I've seen. But then what you see between the team and the community, and the community and the team, like, it became, they were both like, days after the shooting, the team players were visiting people in hospitals.
Yeah.
And it's like, people were like, who are you? It's like, oh, you play for the Knights. Yeah. Our NHL team. You're visiting me in the hospital. This is really cool.
Yeah.
And then the outpouring of support from the community for the team. I do think that we probably have some fair weather fans. Like, we're having an amazing season. Everyone thinks we're invincible that lives here, but and some, when we start losing, if we ever have a losing season, I'm sure we'll lose some fans. But for those of us who know what it feels like to go through ups and downs with a team, I think they've solidified a good base, like a good fan base of diehard fans.
They reeled them in. Mm-hmm. I think it's cool. It's like a really cool like story. It's I don't know. It's kind of like one of those, like, doesn't happen very often, obviously, with the records, but you can open water. No one cares. No one's listening to this. No,
I didn't spill that much on the
ground. Yeah, man, I dig it. It's good for the city. Anything that's good to show people we have a strong community here is awesome. On that note, I'm going to get into some drastically different whiskey than we just had. Yeah, you ready for this one? We were one away from complete madness, so just warning everybody. The next one in the glass is the Angel's Envy Cask Strength 2015 edition, now owned by Bacardi. That was last year, I think they acquired, or 2 years ago. This is 64% ABV, so it's up there. Non-age statement, Kentucky straight bourbon. So at least 4 years. They're saying it's up to 7. They don't mention how long the bourbon is finished in ruby port barrels. So yeah, Angel's Envy Cask Strength and regular is aged in port. Their rye whiskey is aged in Caribbean barrels, so rum barrels. This particular release was 7,500 bottles released, like $170 or something. It's up there. So yeah, this is a sourced whiskey. So yeah, we talked a little bit on sourcing a couple episodes ago, and it's been brought up, but we'll give this a taste. So this is definitely drastically different than what we just tried. On the nose. Yeah, so I came back to this one because I remember when I first opened it, I had some notes and they've changed a bit. So for me, there's this almost bitter, like, nuttiness. The port's there for sure. The fruitiness just jumps out. The color, first of all, the color of this.
That was the first thing I noticed. This is very much darker.
Darker, has the reddish tint. I mean, we're coming from, a Japanese whiskey, which is going to, by comparison, be very, very light. and delicate. This is a little more in your face. Let's see here on the nose. It just has such a huge nose on this. Like the
burn.
The alcohol, 60-something%. Let's see. Yeah, it's just so nutty, coconutty. I mean, I know we mentioned caramel and all this in other episodes, but this just, it goes along with bourbon. But this just screams like just tons of super rich caramel on the nose. Really hot. So this is where, see, this is where we're getting back into it.
Ooh, welcome back, Mike.
Yeah. So this is interesting for me because I've tasted a lot of whiskeys that were, above 60%. This is coming in at 64%. And it tastes like a 64% whiskey.
Yeah.
It's not old enough to kind of tame that to me. It tastes like a younger cask strength finished bourbon, which isn't a bad thing. Also, these vary pretty drastically year to year, so it's said. And I don't think the 2015 Angel's Envy cask strength really scored very high, whatever that means to you. But yeah, so man, on the palate, it's just, so that's the first thing I would say. Really hot, nutty still on the palate, a little bit oily. It's strong. I mean, it's in your face. It's fun. I would put a cube of ice in. I mean, I really would, to open it up.
I've kind of just gotten into, like, I was definitely of the mentality of, like, if you're drinking a whiskey, you drink it neat. And I've recently gotten into playing around with, I always say I should taste it first. Taste it as it's bottled.
Sure.
Get what, what they intended you to taste. And then if it needs that drop of water, like a little bit of water to it, or if it needs a cube or two, like I work up to it. My most recent thing, so when I say recent, like more than 6 months ago, was to order a whiskey and have them give me a couple cubes of ice on the side.
Sure.
And then while I'm tasting it without anything in it, ice melts a little bit. I'll drop that water in.
Yeah.
And then if I feel like it needs it, I'll throw the cubes in themselves. And so I don't know if that's like okay or not, but
absolutely it's okay. If you said you mix it with freaking grape Kool-Aid, it would have been okay. There's no that. You know what? I'm not going to ever tell people they're drinking whiskey wrong, ever. But this, to me, I mean, that's the best way I can describe it. It's very strong. It tastes younger, even though, there's probably a fair amount of 7-year in this where you should be getting some really quality whiskey. It's good. Is it $170 good? My personal opinion, no. That's just me. If I blinded this with some other cask strength, whether it be Elijah Craig or like a Four Roses, for one, I would probably be able to, I would hope, knock on wood, that I would be able to tell that it was finished. So I would know that it's Angel's Envy or something weird. But I would put other cask strengths above this. I would even go Old Grandad 114, which is one of my favorite bourbons, and that's 50-something%. There's a little under this, and that's a $20 bottle. Yeah. And this is a $170 bottle. So, but it comes in a nice wood case, and it's shaped like angel wings. And
since you've been talking about it, I went and picked up a bottle of the Elijah Craig barrel proof, the C917.
Yeah, from Corey's.
Yeah,
they got a bunch in. Yeah,
and I went in, I bought it, and then heard you talking about it on the podcast. Like you posted about it, and I was like, oh, if Cody likes it, like I should go buy it, and I bought it, and then heard you talking about it on the podcast and found out about its Was it rated high or did it win something? Or
Well, the B.11, so they do an A, B, and C release. So this is the third release. The B.517 won Whiskey of the Year for Whiskey Advocate.
Okay, so it was the B.
But I got the C also, and I've had it. It's, you know what, you line those up to me, the A, B, and C this year, I'm probably not going to be able to pick them out. I mean, really, they're all delicious, man. I tried the newest release. It's fantastic.
So I picked up a second bottle just because.
100%. You should. Yeah. Absolutely, man. It's hard to go wrong with Elijah Craig Barrel Proof. I think it's just always been a staple for me. When Elijah Craig 12 was readily available, it was amazing. And then they had to take that down to small batch because everyone started grabbing it, which is fine. Just a solid bourbon, man. One of my favorites. But so this is fun. I mean, Angel's Envy, it's good, man. Yeah. I mean, it shows you that sourcing whiskey isn't necessarily a bad thing. They're not really secretive about it, other than that they don't tell you anything. No, I'm just kidding. But they were one of the first to really push the limits on what can be called bourbon based on finishing.
Right.
Originally, like, the bourbon laws are so strict, and then all of a sudden they said, well, it's in rum, or, it's in port barrels. Is that still bourbon? Yes. And then
like finishing doesn't really.
They're saying it doesn't add additional flavor. That's not. I mean, yeah, it gets hairy, and then from there, Maker's 46 added French oak staves, which is fine, and then Jefferson did some things, and they're aging on Jefferson at sea, and they're putting it on boats, and kind of opened this whole like new marketing thing with bourbon. That tends to happen with something so simplistic, is to get that little bit more of a range out of a whiskey. And some people are doing it extremely well, like High West sources and does different barrel aging. They're a little more, forthcoming about it. They're very, very honest about it. And there's some stuff that I don't care for that they do, and then there's some stuff that's just so delicious that they put out. So
I feel the same way, that there's been a couple that I'm like, oh, okay, this is a nice try. It's good, but
it's cool that people are even doing it.
Yeah.
So I mean, that in itself is fun. But so yeah, that's the Angel's Envy Cask Strength 2015. It's in your face. It's a nice welcome back to whiskey.
You if you don't mind me asking a question, you mentioned the Old Granddad 114.
Yeah.
What else in like that realm of, I guess, different editions of those cheaper whiskeys? I don't want to say cheap in quality, just cheaper price.
Yeah. I can't wait I'm going to do an episode that's sub $20 bourbons. I'm going to try to do it sub 15 too, like do like a well bourbon blind tasting. Man, Evan Williams is amazing. You can get the bottled and bond. Man, there's so many really fun ones. Four Roses Yellow Label. I mean, you just can't go wrong with those. Like, they've been doing it well so long. Wild Turkey 101. Like, damn. I mean, there's just so many good, inexpensive bourbons that people kind of gloss over because they don't think that they should be very good. But like, blind them, man. You're gonna like it. And I mean, granted, Wild Turkey is a specific style where if you don't like Wild Turkey, you're not gonna like it.
Okay.
For me, it's the same thing as like Jim Beam. It's very distinctive tasting. Jack Daniel's, very distinctive. Wild Turkey for me is very distinctive. I happen to really like Wild Turkey. I like most of the products that they put out. So, and a lot of like the Russell Reserve stuff coming out, but that's a little more, I mean, I'm looking at a Heaven Hill bottled and bond that friend Mike Doyle got for me, but that's only available in Kentucky.
Oh, okay.
But it's like legend there. I think, don't quote me on it, but I think it's like $15, and it's a 6-year bottled and bond from Heaven Hill. It's just pretty amazing.
Yeah, so. I was looking at that bottle over there on that shelf, and I said, "Oh, that's what Heaven Hill looks like." Because I hear the name so much, and I realized I've never seen what the bottle looks like.
Yeah.
Do they have like a regular Heaven Hill, or is
nope? I mean, Heaven Hill's the distillery, so they're going to be putting out a ton of products. So, Elijah Craig is Heaven Hill. So yeah, I mean that they really don't. They have in their gift shop, they have like a Heaven Hill private selection, like single barrel that's supposed to be really good. So most of their name brand, like Heaven Hill brand stuff, is only, in Kentucky.
Gotcha.
But they make a lot of larceny, so many things. So I mean, I'm looking up my shelf, but so yeah, I can't wait to do that. I would say I want to do like a sub $15 episode and then like a under 25 because those are kind of the ranges. And I think it might be surprising. And I also want to do an episode. This will be really fun, like under 15 and over 100, and do 3 and 3 and blind them. And see, because I have a feeling that like an Elijah Craig small batch and like that Heaven Hill 6-year could go toe to toe with some that are over $100. That's blind.
I really enjoyed your blind episode with the weeded whiskeys.
Yeah, that's
weeded
actually
bourbons. Sorry.
Yeah, that's surprisingly enough. Well, not surprisingly enough. Like it's one of like the most downloaded episodes because I think people are really interested in, taking away the marketing for a little bit and seeing like the truth behind it. So it's just it's a little bit. It's fun to organize all that and get it going, but I'm definitely going to be doing more blind episodes. I want to do a barrel proof blinding of just like a bunch of barrel proof bourbons, different Scotch regions and all sorts of stuff. But I kind of want to talk about, so going back to like working on Mind Freak, just because it's such like a unique job that, it's so, that's not like, you ask someone what their profession is, like not a lot of people are going to say that. What are some of your like weirdest or coolest memories from working on the show, or something that people wouldn't know about Criss Angel? I know probably people ask you that sometimes, but
yeah, there's this tricky little thing called an NDA that I have to sign. So there's like,
you don't have to give away secrets.
Yeah.
Can you say anything?
Yeah, I can say some stuff. One of my first memories was like meeting Criss.
Yeah.
Like I get hired onto the show. I've come into the theater a couple times just to interview. Then I get a tour, and then it's like my first day on the job. And I started 4 or 5 days before our first preview. Okay. So like I came on, I wasn't part of creation, which is like the point where we're basically in the theater and everything's coming together to make the show. I wasn't a part of that, but we were creating and changing things for the next 2 years, and so I ended up being a part of it.
Right.
But the first time I met Criss, I was like, okay, I've worked with TV personalities before and other celebrities, and I was like, okay, I'm meeting Criss. This is the guy I'm going to be working on his show. He's a nice guy, and the thing that was most memorable was the next time I saw him, he remembered my name.
Yeah, it's like the little stuff like that.
And so he knew everyone's name. He knew I was going to be kind of filling in and helping out with the illusions department and this and that. And so he knew I'd be working closer with him. And so he
Sure.
he'd ask me questions and this and that. And it's just a good guy to work with. He has his moments.
Very cool.
I'm not gonna not gonna lie, but I'm not gonna get into it. But even if he has his moments, he forgets about them and still like loves you as an employee, loves you as a person.
Very cool. That's awesome. Yeah, I had kind of a similar, I was working at Paris and we had Gordon Ramsay there because he's big with his restaurants and Caesar's properties. And, he has this persona of like being this asshole on TV. And I remember one of our cocktail servers walking by, and I think she like had to get by, or she was serving him, like he wanted something to drink. And she was like kind of nervous and dropped off the drink. And he's like, "What's your name?" And she was like, you know what I mean? Like you're expecting him just to take the drink. But he was, only good stories about when Gordon Ramsay visited. So, that's one thing where it's like TV personality versus like, he was just like, super nice to every single staff member that that I knew of. So
yeah, I've heard he's more like his Master Chef Kids personality than he is
100%
Hell's Kitchen
he's
personality.
A big dude too. Like he's like jacked and like just a big dude. I'm like, God damn, you're a big dude.
And he just did that Alexa commercial for the Super Bowl.
Yeah.
And he's on a rowing machine, and I'm just like, wow, man, what do you need to cook with all those? Like he's in shape.
Oh yeah, for sure, 100%. Kind of going back to like your creative background, that's always been a thing for you. What do you do to kind of fuel and kind of release that creative energy that you need to have? Like, what are your hobbies, or is there anything into that you really get to? Because that's probably pretty important for you to have an outlet that's creative. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So when I was first working on the show, when I make something, it doesn't necessarily have to be artistic. I enjoy making things. Mm-hmm. So when I was in college in the props department, like most of what I made was furniture. If I wasn't making furniture, I was shopping antique stores looking for props. And so like it's an awesome job.
Yeah.
I build furniture. I go look at old shit in a store.
I bet you've seen some crazy shit.
Oh man. And let me tell you, antique stores in Michigan are like just a cut above antique stores out in Vegas, because everything in Vegas is not that old. And everyone who's selling it thinks it's worth more than it actually is.
Yeah, 100%.
In Michigan, I could buy like an old antique ship's wheel for like $40. Out here, people want $300, $400.
Right. It's like they see American pickers and they're like, "Yeah, this is what we should."
And it's like a decorative ship's wheel, whereas the ship wheel I found was actually on a ship somewhere.
On the Titanic.
Yeah. Even older than that, I think. I don't know. But and so like for my creative outlet now, it's I on the show I could do those things. When I moved into automation, that's a lot more computer work and working on a system. And so I wasn't building anything. Right. And so I felt myself lacking. I was getting frustrated. And when the brewery came around, I was able to have so many outlets for it. Like I built or helped build all of our furniture in the tap room, the bar, the benches, the tables, like the
I think when I first went in there, I think you were like sweeping the floor, which I was like, okay, that's like, I was like, I like meeting people in humble situations. Yeah. But yeah, you were instrumental in, because you did like there was like reclaimed wood and all that. So
yeah, Nate and I cut apart like 80 pallets of wood and put all that wood onto the wall and leaned it out on the floor. Nate stained it all because I hate staining and painting. But and we put it up on the walls and made all the decorations and stuff. And
I remember the countertop, like you like put the lacquer or whatever
it's
it is.
The bar top, like that.
The bar top.
That not polyurethane. It's I forget what it's called.
I just remember how fun that was for you guys.
Oh my God, I got it everywhere. And we taped everything and tried to seal everything up. It still leaked everywhere, and there's like still to this day. If you ever go into Bad Beat, look underneath the bar in the corner of the bar, and there's like paper towel stuck to the bar top that's like that leaked through.
You didn't have to sign a NDA for that?
No, I don't think I signed anything for that place.
You can say whatever you want. Oh, that's funny, man.
And so, yeah, so that outlet's nice. And then honestly, the projects around the house, like if I have to like mount a shelf from IKEA up, I enjoy the fact that I have a drill in my hand.
So it's not only, it doesn't have to be creative. It can just doing something physical, making something, building something, whatever it is.
I've got plans for a giant wall in my house. I got one of our.
So you're a Trump supporter.
Oh.
No, I'm just kidding.
Oh boy.
Let's not get.
Yeah, no.
Trust me, we're never going there on this podcast.
Unless it was the whiskey talking.
That's true.
I have so one of our barrels, our bourbon barrels that we've aged beer in at the brewery, wasn't sealed correctly. It wouldn't hold beer, and so we were just going to get rid of it. And then it got mold in it or something. And so I was like, I'll take it. Like here now, I have a entire barrel's worth of barrel staves and awesome. A top and a bottom sitting in my garage, and I finally just realized what I want to do with it. And so like I'm going to get back into that creative aspect and make like a piece of wall art with a
very
barrel.
cool.
Yeah.
Cool. Yeah. There's so much stuff you can do with the reclaim. I have a barrel table that got made for me, a guy named Sean that I met while I was bartending at Velveteen Rabbit. He made me a custom like table that opens up. It's half barrel. It's in our living room. But it was from a barrel from Grape Expectations. So it was very cool. Yeah, they were getting rid of them for like, a little more whiskey.
Ooh, I took another sip.
Yeah, it's no joke. Yeah, they were getting rid of them for like $100. So I just grabbed one and didn't know what to do with it. I thought I'm like, I could do so much stuff with this. At the time I was in an apartment. I'm like, I have no room. Like I can't. What am I supposed to do? Like build something on my patio? So he did a great job but there's so much fun stuff to do.
I think Velveteen Rabbit, going back to other places to recommend, I've always enjoyed them. It's definitely more of a super unique cocktail bar. That's
Absolutely.
like their shining point as they rotate a menu every quarter.
Yeah.
Decent selection behind the bar. There's a lot of stuff there.
Fun beers.
And beers too. So it's like you can kind of get your fill of beer and whiskey and cocktails in one place. I don't think it's been mentioned on the show before. I'm not.
No. I was there for about 9 months, somewhere around there. It was really, really cool. What it reminded me of when I first walked into it was I'm like, oh, this reminds me of Portland, like 100%. And then I talked to Pam, one of the owners, two sisters own it, Pam and Christina. And she's like, oh yeah, I spent some time in Portland, and we were mentioning some coffee shops that I've been to, and so that was my first feel. And some people say it has a hipster vibe, whether it does or not. I mean, it has like the Edison lights, but they do a really good job. I mean, you're going to be hard pressed to find a more creative cocktail program in all of Las Vegas. I mean, I would say Marina Mercer's program at Cosmo is super creative, but on a large scale. Like she does it on such a grand scale. But Velveteen Rabbit is downtown in the Arts District, right by Hop Nuts. Yep. There's a lot of really cool stuff going to happen down there too. That's an area that's going to grow. So if you're in Vegas, like check out the Arts District. It's really fun. But yeah, Velveteen Rabbit's cocktail program's on point. But yeah, they always have really interesting beers coming through, and both the sisters love beer too. So
yeah, I want to say their new menu has a drink with a red vine straw.
It does, yeah. I saw it on their Instagram.
So they do everything from very like prim and proper, easy drinking, like a nice bourbon cocktail, to something served in some crazy ceramic cup with a red vine straw.
Yeah, I did
I love it.
There's what I like about Velveteen Rabbit, and what I still like about them is that there's no rules and there's no boundaries, because it's a small bar. Bigger casinos, it's kind of hard to get things pushed through. When I was there, I did a mezcal drink with a homemade ancho soda that I had in a soda siphon, and it was served with a side of mezcal spiced peanuts. So they're like really spicy, and I soaked the peanuts in mezcal, then dried them. And so like I did that, and they're like, we can do that. Whereas like,
who does that? Who else serves, paired peanuts with a cocktail? It's so, I mean, kudos to you for the creativeness, but like that is what they do. Like they had something that got served with donuts or mini donuts or something.
Yeah, that was wild. It was called like Oprah's. I forget the name. It had hemp milk in it. That was the menu right before. It was a bourbon drink with hemp milk, and it had a donut hole as the garnish. Yeah. My first drink there was called the Wooden Nickel, and it was a brown butter washed bourbon old fashioned. So just like to hint on, because we haven't talked cocktails too much, but I'm gonna get some people on here to talk about whiskey cocktails because there's so much to talk about. But so I did a brown butter. So heat the butter up to where it like kind of caramelizes. Poured that into bourbon, mix it up, and then freeze it overnight so that butter will separate. And then you take off the fat layer. So now you've fat washed the flavor into the bourbon. Mm-hmm. So it's almost like this really toasty, toffee. So it just amplifies, but it adds this mouthfeel of like butter, but the fat solids aren't in it. So then you fine strain those out with cheesecloth. So if you're ever thinking about like doing a butter washed bourbon, like try it.
Yeah.
Just look it up on Google.
I feel like that was one of the first drinks I had there. I remember the name, and I'm trying to remember if it was because you came into the brewery and you were working there,
probably,
and told me about it or something, and I went there and tried it, and I'm sure there's an Instagram post on my Instagram with some low light, shitty filter picture of the drink.
Yeah, it's a pretty dark bar, but yeah, it had like Campari in it too. I remember. I mean, it's been, I don't even know, 3 years, something like that. But yeah. Anyway, check out Velveteen Rabbit if you want like crazy, awesome, creative cocktails, great bartenders, cool beer selection, back patio. They have live music all the time.
Is this where we're supposed to say shout out?
Shout out every episode. Jesus, there's been some episodes where it's like, dude, the whole episode is like shouting out people. But all right, let's get into the monster.
Oh my god,
the smoky or the peaty elephant in the room.
peaty pink elephant,
right?
It's got to be different too.
This is the Bruichladdich Octomore 8.3. So Remy Cointreau owns Bruichladdich. This is 61.2% ABV. It's distilled in 2011. Only 18,000 bottles were produced, and it's coming in at 309 ppm, so parts per million of phenol. So that's the measure of peat smoke on the malt. So we'll kind of get in briefly about, what that means. Is there a lot of marketing? Yes, but this is the highest ppm measurement for Scotch, I believe, on the market right now.
I don't think it's been officially said yet.
Yeah,
I think it's the peatiest or the most in the world, but it's. I don't know if they even care if it's official or not. But
no, they don't care. They're part of that race for the peatiest Scotch. Mm-hmm. But it's aged 5 years. So yeah, it's considered the most heavily peated Octomore to date, or Scotch at 309 ppms. Let's see. So one farm, one field, one vintage, distilled in 2011, like I said, from a 2010 harvest. And it is 56% full term, so full maturated in ex-bourbon, and then 44% exclusively matured in European oak. So a lot of different wine barrels. Mm-hmm. So yeah, and I have this capped because when we started to pour it, it flooded the room with this intense peat smoke and Band-Aids.
Why does this Angel's Envy smell like peat?
Yeah.
Oh, it's the Octomore.
Why do my dogs smell like peat smoke and they're downstairs? Well, on the nose though, wow, I was expecting something more aggressive just by the bottle and the tube that it came in.
And what I've heard.
What you've heard, yeah. But it's I mean, it definitely has that, but God,
it's not. It's like you're smelling. I think you've talked about it before that like peat and smoke are kind of different flavors.
Yeah.
It's more peaty than it is smoky.
Yeah, so it has that like earthiness, but there's a lot of sweetness. It's a big nose, and just for those listening, we're using a Norland glass, which is a pretty fun whiskey glass. Cool. I remember getting these on their Kickstarter campaign. So yeah, check out the Norland glass if you haven't seen them. It's, there's a lot of features to it, but one of the coolest ones is that it's a glass kind of in a glass so that your hand doesn't heat up the whiskey too much by holding it, which is really interesting. But really, on the nose, it has this sweetness too, like vanilla, like almost creme brulee, like a cake, like a white sponge cake or something.
Not like a sweet cake of any kind, but yeah, like sponge cake or there's, I don't know, some of those cakes that they're made not to be sweet.
Right. Yeah. But yeah, I mean, not gonna lie, like the peat's there on the nose.
Oh yeah.
And there's a lot of pepper notes. I mean, I'm getting like some green pepper type of notes, white pepper even. I mean, it's spicy, but it's also like delicate too at the same time. Like it has this duality, which is kind of cool on the nose. But all right, I'm going in for this one. You want to do the last cheers?
Cheers.
And then we break the Norling glasses. I was kidding. Whoa. Whoa. There's so much going on.
It's not just... I'm blown away. Yeah. It's not just peaty for the sake of being peaty. Like, you know, that's all it gets talked about with this Scotch. And it's like, the ppm and this and that and peatiest. And there's way more to it than I was expecting.
Yeah, there's like, I mean, yes, the element is there that it has that Band-Aid-y kind of, you know, seaweed salinity, but there's so much fruit. I get like peach, a lot of like peach on this. But that creme brulee for me is there. This is really good. Extremely long finish. Obviously, it's like higher proof, but it's really complex. And it's just like, talk about like triggering your flavor receptors. You drink it and it's just like bang, 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 all over the place.
And it is a journey.
Yeah.
From the nose to the initial taste to the finish. It is all over the place, but well put together.
I think it's well integrated. I mean,
yeah, that's a good word.
Yeah, it's just, and it has balance. It's not just this super peat right in your face, and then there's nothing more. Really good. I mean, good toasted oak, I think, on the palate, but a lot of fruit. Like, really cool. This is a really fun one.
Wow.
And this is about right around in the $200 range ish. It's up there. I mean, it's no joke. This is pretty pricey.
I want to say I saw, surprisingly enough, a bottle. Like I've heard a couple different stories about their distribution to Vegas, and that people are confusing Octomore as the distillery. And so then they're like, oh, they must not distribute here anymore. And then I'm like, oh wait, no, it's
yeah. I mean, it's not too in your face. Like, they're definitely, the branding for them is Octomore. Yeah.
I saw a bottle of the 6.2 maybe at Lee's. And so I walked in, and I think you've talked about Lee's and some pricing on the show before, and I'm not going to talk too much about it, but I walked in and I was like, oh, they have a bottle. Like, oh, I wonder what it's going to cost. And it was like $159, which I think was like closer to what it was actually, what it retails for around town. It was just that, it was in their glass case, and it's not readily available everywhere else. And so I was tempted, but I saw it right after I bought this bottle.
Oh, yeah.
So I was like, I'm going to pass.
Yeah, Bruichladdich does some really, really fun stuff. This is really good. A lot of, I mean, the finish on the very, very tail end, like, it has this, like, cocoa, too, that I get. But, yeah, it has a little bit of that, like, seaweed type of action. But I'm surprised by how much, like, fruit, cherry, peach type of flavors are coming through. Really fun. This is a really fun whiskey.
I'm super excited that this was in the lineup of like the 4 whiskeys I drank for the first time in 6 months.
Nice. Yeah, it's quite a range too. I mean, we have some like really delicate, some like super fruity, and then we went into cask strength, and then kind of blew out, let's blow our palate out at the very last.
Yeah.
But oh man, this is good. This is a good lineup.
I completely forgot to mention, I last minute grabbed something extra and special. If you're interested in it.
What is it?
I
am, but yeah.
So this is not available to buy anywhere.
Okay.
But it's a a pull off of Stranahan's first ever barrel that they filled.
Oh, really?
And the barrel is nicknamed K Street OG, I think. And so it's like Stranahan's opened up in Colorado.
Yeah.
And did their thing, filled their first barrel, and this is part of that.
Oh, you got it? Nice. I got 2 more glasses.
I've got some connections. I'm gonna do a shout out. Katrina, my friend Katrina up there, she used to do tours for Stranahan's.
Oh, you got. Oh, wow. Don't put much in there, because then I'll feel bad. Here you go.
And she's been
That's good.
integral in
Wow, that's big color.
helping me like explore a lot of whiskey stuff. And
very cool.
She gave me a tour when I went up there and introduced me to, or went to an event during GABF, the Great American Beer Festival up in Denver.
Yeah.
Went to an event with her and got to sit down and talk with Todd Leopold.
Oh, very cool.
Of Leopold Brothers, and which I didn't know until that day that they started in Michigan.
Yeah. Oh, I didn't know that either, because they're Denver.
They're Denver now.
Yeah.
They used to be a brewery in Michigan.
Okay, so you had that connection.
And so, yeah, we talked about that a little bit. He knew about New Holland, and I everything that I've tried from them has been, I mean, I even like their Michigan cherry whiskey.
Yeah.
And I know you've talked about flavored whiskeys, but more in terms of like Fireball and stuff like that. The way that they flavor their whiskeys is probably as the best way that you could. It's real fruit into the whiskey. I think that it even like finishes in the barrel with the fruit. And then those barrels end up going to New Belgium for aging their sours. And like the whole community up there is all about sharing everything.
That's so awesome. Man.
Ooh.
Yeah, it's an intense nose, really deep color. So this is the first modern micro distillery legally to make whiskey in Colorado. So I think right around 2004 is when they distilled, and they bottled in 2006. So this must have been 2006.
Yeah.
Yeah, it must have been. Or unless they were doing some...
If whatever happened before, if they did anything initially, yeah.
Oh, man, the nose on this is out of control. Do you know what the proof is?
I have no idea.
That's okay. That's even better. Mystery bottle. You know what I'm getting on the nose, which is like, it's typical, like, do you know what the mash bill is or anything? Or
I know nothing about it. I can...
I'm going to look what kind of...
I want to say it's their... they don't do many different variations or like, what's the term? Expressions?
Yeah.
They have their regular Stranahan's, and then they do Snowflake, and then Diamond Peak.
Yeah.
Snowflake is their more rare. It's like, one day release, and they sell out all the bottles, and people are camping out for days in the freezing cold in December for it.
So if this is what I think it is, it's 100% malted barley for 4 different kinds used in the mash. From what I kind of read, it's like a 2-year. I mean, it's up there, but this is. I mean, just on the nose, this is higher proof.
Yeah, I'm getting. It's. I mean, not in a bad way, but like that, like nail polish remover, paint thinner, like something in there that's
100%
me.
It also, this is a weird tasting note for whiskey, but I'm also getting like candy cane, which is weird underneath, like. But yeah.
Yeah.
But the nail polish remover, it's kind of there. Like that's definitely there. Powerful nose. I'm gonna take a sip. Wow. So this one that definitely has to be around. I would say up 55%, 60%, somewhere around there. If it's not, it's younger. I mean, you can tell it's a younger whiskey, but the palate is absolutely crazy.
It gave me an interesting mouthfeel on the
Yeah.
you talk about mouthfeel. It's definitely more talked about in beer. With whiskey, I don't know how much it's talked about, but like it towards the end, as I was swallowing, it almost sucked all the moisture out of my mouth for a second, and then I started salivating.
Well, it definitely has tannin, like it has the astringency. It's definitely drying out. What I get a lot of is like cherry butterscotch. Like I'm getting a lot of like butterscotch elements. But yeah, it has like this bitterness, a bitter finish, and it's not even really a bad one. It's a fun whiskey. That's definitely higher proof, but man, I dig it. I mean, it's funny. Like we've talked about it on the show. What's kind of the trajectory of what the new trend is going to be? And I've always, well, not always said, but I've seen this like yearning for the American malt whiskey to take off, and I think that's the new rise: American single malt whiskeys, and malt whiskeys. And it's just so cool. Like I can't wait, 20 years down the road when we can taste something and go, oh yeah, that's a typical Colorado, or that's a Texas bourbon, or that's a Colorado bourbon, or malted whiskey. I mean, that's when I think it's going to get really fun, is when some of these like micro distilleries like start having the aged stock, because they're so new that it's hard to compete with some of the bigger guys. Not to say that they're not great whiskey, but it's just going to get better with the more age that they're going to have in stock. And it's only a matter of time before one, takes over the world and like takes a little bit of the focus away from Kentucky as far as like American distilling goes. But everyone's kind of playing catch up with like how much history is down there and how much production. But this is fun, man. This is a cool little like surprise. I didn't even know this was coming. So it's high proof though.
Yeah, it's getting me.
It's yeah, this one's hot, but it's good.
Yeah, I held it in my mouth a little bit longer, and now I'm getting the burn on the very tip of my tongue.
Okay.
And then like kind of like the top sides is where I'm feeling more of the burn.
Yeah, this is interesting, man. That was a fun one.
Yeah, I totally forgot to mention it when I took everything out of the bag, and I was going to say.
No, it's even better.
Yeah, I surprised him live on the show.
Yeah, I had no idea. So yeah, is there anything else you kind of want to let the people know? Where to go? I don't know, things to check out. Give people advice on drinking beer, drinking whiskey.
Let me say this.
Yeah.
Always, and I tell this to everyone who ever came into the brewery while I was working behind the bar. So I did bartend for a little bit at Bad Beat, but because of job stuff, I had to stop. I don't care if you come in to the brewery and say, I don't drink beer. Like, I don't know what I like. I don't drink beer.
Yeah.
As long as you are willing to try something new. If you come in and say, I hate stouts, but you're willing to try our stout or try a stout, that's more important than actually liking the stout. And so, this can be applied to whiskey, wine, beer, life.
Yeah.
That it's fun. It's fun to say yes at least once and try that new thing. If you're a red wine drinker and someone's like, oh, you really need to try this one white wine, try it. If you're normally a bourbon drinker and someone's trying to approach you with scotch and you're like, oh, I don't like scotch, just try it at least. And even if you still hate it afterwards, at least you tried it.
Sure.
And same goes for beer.
It's good advice, man. Just get out there, try new things. I'm gonna play your outro music, which you didn't pick, but I'm gonna.
Oh boy!
No, it's not. I don't think it's a bad one.
That's nice.
A little bit of Derek McDonald's, a little Clapton.
Mm-hmm.
You're a Clapton fan, right?
Absolutely.
So I want to thank Mikey D. I'm just gonna leave it there. Thank you so much for coming by, man, and bringing some like absolutely amazing whiskeys. Go try Bad Beat. Take his advice. Try something new. Keep being creative. Find your little outlet. So thank you so much, man. Cheers. Appreciate it. Thank Thank you all so much for joining us for the Whiskey Talkin' podcast. If you dig the show, please share it with your friends and family that might also enjoy it. Follow the show on Facebook, Whiskey Talkin' Podcast, also on Instagram and Twitter under the name Whiskey Talkin' PC. The website's whiskeytalk.in. Feel free to contact me with thoughts, show ideas, whiskey suggestions, or anything your whiskey heart desires. Thank you again, and remember,
if it got out of hand, it was the Whiskey Talkin'.